Hi, this is Gary. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of what leveraged ETFs are. Now, ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund, and there's two types of ETFs we're going to look at in this video. There's the ultra funds that use leverage on the long side. They can be 2x, 3x. And what they're doing is they're targeting to do 2 to 3 times the market return of an index. It could be a large cap index, could be an international index, could be a specific sector index like banking, technology, and so forth. And so I'm going to give an example here of how that works. First off, if the index itself is up 2% and you're using an ultra fund, let's say 2x, so a double, on the right, your fund is going to be up 4% that day. And if the index is up 2% and you're using a triple or a 3x ultra fund, you're going to be up 6%. So it's going to be, you're going to get 3 times the return, and that's the daily market return. Now, on the flip side, there are inverse funds, and they use leverage to attempt to return 2x or 3x the inverse, and highlight the word inverse there, daily market return of an index, large cap, international, or a specific sector like we mentioned earlier. So I'm going to walk through an example here real quickly. Let's say the index is down 2%, while the inverse fund is going to be up 2% that day. And if the index is down 2%, we have a double inverse fund that's going to be up 4%. And of course, if we have a triple inverse fund, it's going to be up 6% that day, or it's going to be close to that based on the mandate of the fund. Now, why would somebody use an exchange-traded fund or a leveraged ETF? Well, first off, you got leverage, so you can increase your returns. Secondly, some people like to use the argument that you can hedge to reduce market exposure. And, of course, finally, any other reasons I may have missed out on here. Now, I'm going to cover the downside of leveraged ETFs and why I don't like them. And this can be essentially summed up in one word, and that is volatility. And I'm going to walk through an example in just a minute here to go through exactly what I'm trying to get at. Now, leveraged ETFs are okay if your holding period is 1 day, because they're doing double or triple or inverse double or triple the underlying index you're tracking, so you're not going to have a problem with tracking that most of the time. But to get that leverage, they have to use derivative contracts, and they may lag or lead an index on a certain day, so that's the one downside. But generally speaking, they're going to be okay if your holding period is a day. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink all this stuff down here, and I'm going to walk through an example of why there's a tracking problem, or why I don't like leveraged ETFs over an extended period of time longer than a day. Okay, in this example here, I have the index, ultra 2x, ultra 3x, inverse, inverse 2x, inverse 3x, okay? Now I'm going to walk through this example over 4 days, and we're going to take a look at the divergence in returns versus what you think the return would be. I'm going to try to use a straightforward example here. Day number 1, index is up 3%. I'm going to highlight the ups in green and the downs in red. And you can see how the corresponding indexes do that day, so they match the daily return there. Now let's say day 2, index is down 2%. Okay, well, the corresponding funds, that's how they would do that day. Day 3, index is up 3%. And below, the corresponding funds, or ETFs, how they should do that day. Now we move on to day 4. We're down 3%, and then I've listed the corresponding ETFs and how they should do that day. Now, that's just 4 days. Now let's look at our totals here. The index is going to be up 8%. Now, I got that number from taking 1.03 times 0.98 times 1.03 times 0.97. So essentially taking the return on the top line, negative 2%, 3%, and negative 3%. So it gives a cumulated return of 0.08%. Now for the Ultra 2x, Ultra 3x, inverse, etc., I've done the same thing, and that's where we get our return totals there from. Now, if you're sitting here and thinking, okay, well, Ultra 2x is supposed to do 2 times or 3 times the stated index return. So what are expected returns? And I've got another column on the right here that says returns expected. And essentially this is, okay, Ultra 2x, it should be, we expect it to do 2 times what the index did. We would expect it to do 3 times the index. Inverse would be inverse of the index, and we expect the 2x inverse to do 2 times the expected and 3 times the expected. But now if we look at the actual totals, they're going to be different, and that's because these funds do it on a daily basis. It's not on a period of time basis. So if you're holding periods longer than a day, or you're a long-term investor, and by long-term I mean like a week or more, which is not really long-term, your returns are going to have a divergence. They're not going to be what they're expected. So I have another column on the right. I've added, it's called tracking error, and that is the difference between the actual totals and the returns expected. And as you can see there, the returns are lower than what you would expect because of the one word here, volatility. And that difference is going to widen over time. So I've only got 4 days listed here. If we did it over 20 days, if we did it over 80 days, 100 days, that tracking error is going to widen by a significant margin. If you look here, our inverse 2x and our ultra 3x are almost off by 1% tracking error. That's only 4 days, and that's not a ton of volatility in this example. The further out we go, the more the divergence is going to increase. And that, in a nutshell, is why I'm not a fan of leveraged ETFs. I know when I first seen them come out in about 2007-ish, they looked really interesting, and I thought, okay, this would be a really good idea. So I started playing around with spreadsheets and stuff and looking at what the mandate was. And then after playing around with the spreadsheets, I pretty much came to the conclusion I'm showing you in this example, and that's why I don't like them. Thank you for watching.